Hi. This week I'm calling it It's Done. Now, it's done doesn't always mean immediate. At times it is immediate. I'm sure many of you know about the Greg Braden's sharing of the doctors, who I think were in China, standing around somebody who had a tumour. And they had such clarity that they just energized, gone, 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 gone. And on the screen that was seeing what was happening to the tumour shrunk and disappeared. Each moment of gone revealed itself energetically in the disappearing of that tumour. So even there, fast as it was, it's a process of that clarity that can be held by the masters who have that capacity. Last week, process was one of the cards, and the card that was pulled this week was support. But I'll be showing you via diagrams what support actually is in this sharing. Process came after the whole weekend was finished, actually, and I thought that's interesting because it's the card we pulled the week before. Allow and enjoy the process of your life without rushing to the goal. Experiences are part of the journey. You don't have to understand them all to enjoy the process. Now is the time to look at how you approach and do things, which is what this week's about. Perhaps make some changes for what worked for you in the past may not necessarily be the best process for you in the future. So this aspect of done, for those of you who use symbols in your work, and I know you are not all kinesiologists or practitioners who use these symbols, but they're pretty obvious. So we start with the circle, and these symbols are actually held up in front of people we see, and if there are stresses on it, then they get balanced out so that that symbol, as they progress, because there's a whole progression of them, to the ability to stand outside of present worldly times, where you can hold as an individual an aspect that's so true that cannot be denied. Not that it cannot be denied. It is so evident. It's so evident. But sometimes that can be a lonely place. These are the inventors, those that see things before they come into being. But to begin with, there's this energy. It's an invitation. 3D land, it's an invitation. And you come in. You come in. And in that space, we feel we are the world. And in the process of gestation, the energies adapt or don't adapt. And there are processes where if the energy doesn't adapt, it goes, no, I can't come in that far. And miscarriages may come about. And very often they're not to do with the mother. They're more to do with many want to come here, but not everyone can stand the pressure of condensing to the extent that they can fall this deep. So here we are the world. And as time goes by, there is that process where it enters into duality. These lines can appear as a symbol, as straight lines, but It is said straight lines don't even exist. They all eventually curve. Anyway, here we are. We're happy, we're fed, we're dry, we're hungry, we cry, we're okay, we cry, we're okay, we cry, we're okay, we cry, we're okay, and eventually it gets worked out. And that then leads to that being able to be in this space here, where there is a sense of patience. I know I'm going to get fed. I know I'm going to get changed. I know that this space of okayness appears that is achieved by the being itself. Now, that process is a very important process because that process has the element of it's done. I know they're going to come, even though they haven't arrived yet. They're going to come. I'm going to get fed. Now, that space becomes trickier and trickier as we come into the world more and more, because as those who have children or are around children, you know that they have, this is the spiritual etheric, the potentiality of what can be brought into life, and here is it actually landing. So children may have this idea of, I want this up here. But do they have the balance of knowing how to bring it in other than parents supplying it? To feel that within themselves, that can be brought in. And in time, that's really the gig in life. Some people can stand in vast capacities and bring it in as done. Others have these incredible plans, but they actually rely on others to do the giving of it. There is a sensitivity that would be wonderful to actually cultivate. This is getting messy. There is something that can be cultivated, and this is especially in relationships. I mean, I'm talking people who live together, who cohabit together, who are married together, who just people in what I call primary relationship, even though every relationship at the end of the day is primary. But it's more very present in your face. We can let certain things go, passing by in supermarkets and whatnot, or markets. But in a relationship, it's a very different deal. If it's to really be in freedom, is to actually find out what are your dreams and what are you able to hold to have that become a reality, to bring that in present time, that it has done. That process brings it into presence, but it never loses that sense of done. It doesn't mean that we can't go, yes, I can do it, it's a bit of a stretch, but I feel it's true in me and I really want to do that. But if another party doesn't have that same agreement, or they say, I want this, but I'm relying on you to pull your weight here to give that to me. And when that party becomes silenced, because any discussion outside of that is not acceptable, then we're not really in freedom anymore. So that showed up in several ways. And the way I want to share it is through a diagram of these energies and how it affects the beings. We know nothing is solid, so we're really not standing on anything. And there is a pouring of capacity to create in this world that is as limitless as the beings that are here. So what showed up was these areas of going up into the world, into the spirit world. And there was a sense of surrogating. That means feeling other than myself that can bring it to me. And it was like, when will Source bring this through? I'm surrogating for Source. And what was revealed, which was really lovely, was that it was, Source is never missing. It was about through you, this comes. If you can see it, it's yours. If you can see it and you feel the balance of how to stand in that, it's yours. Whether other people can see it or not. But if you're if you're relating to other people, then of course that needs to be a balance. But for those who carry these things by themselves, they themselves know what they can stand in. I know I have stood in things I would not ask another to stand in. And there are others who have stood in things I would no more choose to stand in. But they do. And that's part of how we get the done. And it was very relieving that it comes through and that I am that aspect that came here, that has the connection to that coming through. So the tricky one was where the being turned up, and it was done. And it being done before even arriving here, you kind of go, what am I going to do in life? Because sometimes things are so clear and so effortless we can't see it, because the Protestant ethics thinks you have to work for things. Therefore, it must be hard, it must be difficult, for why else am I getting paid? And in this session, it was wonderful, because it's like, if this wasn't the case, but if you're a musician and you come from a lineage of musicians, lifetime after lifetime of lifetime, you come in, it's kind of done. And music is that which came into the world. And they're the hardest ones to actually see, because it's like a fish in water. It's hard to see. It's already done. Enjoy it. Bring it out. Do it effortlessly. And just bring it in as you do it. And then, of course, the evolution of that continues in the bringing out of what that is, that already has been brought in and has existed at such a level for the being. But that's a hard one to see, because there's nothing pulling above, there's nothing to ground. It's literally, you were born, here's your belly button, and it came with you. And many of us have something we came with. I know of somebody who had incredible capacity for colours, the balance of colours, and the interesting thing is it was so natural that when assignments were set, they didn't do the required, you have to put in 3, it'd be 10 would be done and still would not feel that anything was done. Very tricky. So sometimes, and this showed up as well, we know very much that we want to pull something in. But we're still in two minds about it. We know what sacrifice it may bring, or am I that clear that I want to give up the freedom I have now for something that is unknown, but I really want the experience of that. And to find the truth of, yes, I want it, but the timing's not right, is very important as well. I know it lives in me. I have no doubt it will come about. Now may not be the time, but there'll be a time where it feels so true that the energy of the balance of what that is feels done because you can meet it. But we have to be very honest with ourselves. And this being was very honest with herself. And then there are those energies where we know what we want, we're very clear about it, but we're in a world where we hold that space as done. Now, not everything we feel we want to have done arrives in the way or in the timing that we want it, but to stay with the doneness. And some people that I see have been doing this for years, 5 years, 3 years. It feels a long time to hold that okayness of, yes, I can do it. To find the sweet spot where you are able to look at whatever you want and go, yes, and it's a complete yes. You will not find hurdles. The hurdles are just something you work around, move over, because the yes is so strong. That's why it's so important to find that balance. In fact, this process here, those who have these dreams up here and want them really instantly here, that is that flip-flopping of high as a kite, deeply depressed, high as a kite, deeply depressed. It's bipolar. And to put the steps in place, which is why it's important for children to go, if you want that, put these steps in place. There's no doubt that that will happen, show me, and it's as good as there. These are, without making it the work ethics, and that's how you get there. It's more that inner working of that we're looking at when doing that. So, and there's a huge increase of bipolar in this world at the moment because so much is expected to be instant. And I'm not saying it can't be. For many, it also is. So I'm not saying one or the other, just know how that sits and whether that's true. So the last bit I want to speak of here that showed up in this energetics as well is being in relationship. Sometimes we're not quite there. The feet are not necessarily, we're still in the process of sorting out, am I in relationship? I'm not in, is this going to work? Is this really a joy in my life? And is it grounded or is it not grounded? And what can happen is that we go outside of ourselves to our spiritual capacity to be able to hold space in the potentiality of it being grounded. But it isn't grounded. And if the other party just says, well, that's the ground, you're going to have to do a little bit better, and then doing a little bit better, it now becomes even more difficult to actually find the ground, because now if this is not done, you're the culprit that isn't meeting their needs. But at the same time, they're not working out, how can I meet you here? And then by continuing to make it more okay all the time, you end up in a relationship you actually don't want, and you don't even want to spend time with them. And to be able to really, number one, see what you did so that you can learn from this. And then, on the other hand, to see how can we come to the party, because if that's not the case, this is not how I want to live. So it's quite pivotal that we stay present and that we don't go too far in the spirit or too into the earthly, unless it has a balance that feels true. The next symbol actually that comes after this is beautiful. It's where the heart bridges the duality, and that's where you want to meet. So the card that was pulled was support. Giving support and allowing support expands who you are. Do not see requiring support as a failure. Ask for support when you need it, but do not abuse the support of others. You are an integral link in the chain of beingness. Everything and everyone is connected. Nothing works in isolation. Allow support to reinforce your strengths. Be encouraged to support yourself and your endeavours. And check the balances. When no one has skin in the game, you've got to ask some questions. Lots of love.